All right, with Stranger Things season 5 dropping in 3 days on Wednesday, this is for all my Dungeons and Dragons players. I specifically don't do Dungeons and Dragons or anything, like that, but I did understand how interwoven it is into the main plot. And honestly, the show concept itself from the Duffer Brothers perspective, because they are huge fans of the Dungeons and Dragons game. So here is specifically a video for the Dungeons and Dragons fans who follow Stranger Things, looking at it from that lens, because everybody sees Stranger Things differently. But I do understand in the world of Stranger Things that you have a huge different type of fan base. Like my fan base particularly, I love the kids of the show and how, the kids and the adventurous and the clue solving. But there is a huge D&D campaign metaphor within the show. So if we're looking at it from that lens, I'm going to, deep dive pause into that concept. So the Duffer Brothers are dungeon masters, right? So as dungeon masters, the Duffers control the world mechanics, how the Upside Down works, the rules for psychic powers, and the gating system, party progression, who grows, who doesn't make it, who faces trauma, and how each PC, 11, Mike, Max, Lucas, Will, Dustin, Hopper, Joyce, Nancy, levels up emotionally and narratively. Can't forget Steve, Jonathan, everybody. NPC morality and challenges, flawed men, dangerous authorities, rival factions, and monster bosses. Player agency versus consequences. PCs can make choices, but trauma and, high stakes and moral tests are inevitable, passing away. The key dungeon master pattern is they love emotional stakes tied to trauma. Each player character has a personal dungeon. Max versus Billy, Mind Flayer, 11 versus Vecna, Lucas and Max partnership must grow through that challenge. Okay, and now we have to, acknowledge Stephen King's influence on the Duffer Brothers if they are dungeon masters. So his elements in Stranger Things are small town with hidden darkness. Hawkins is like Castle Rock or Derry, right? Kids as central heroes facing existential horror. Parental failures, flawed authority, ordinary people encountering unimaginable supernatural forces. It's a trauma-driven plus psychic powers, 11. Monster metaphors for psychological or social trauma, what the kids are dealing with. King's influence on the campaign style, slow building horror plus interwoven character arcs. Moral ambiguity, adults fail, kids carry the emotional weight. Real world stakes, trauma and grief have consequences. So the Duffer Brothers campaign isn't just like take out the monster. It's psychological horror combined with high stakes adventure, reflecting Stephen King style. The Duffer Brothers use that a lot in Stranger Things. And this is my perspective in theory, the Duffers put a lot of their personal trauma into the show. Hopper losing Sarah maybe affects his parenting arc and risky behavior. 11 losing connections to her mother, abuse, her trauma powers. Max and Billy, sibling abuse and emotional consequences. Lucas and Mike balancing trust, loyalty, and survival. Every major arc mirrors a childhood trauma or coming of age struggle, often filtered through 80s D&D nostalgia and King-style horror. They write trauma as both a mechanic and narrative tool, like an XP in a campaign. Yeah, the Duffer Brothers use a lot of their own personal trauma, me personally, in the show. It might show in the epilogue at the end of season 5. We'll see. So the season 5 ending, the conclusion, if we're looking at the Duffer Brothers mindset as dungeon masters, the final campaign arc is Upside Down Invasion, Vecna's true power. Vecna is the final boss, ultimate trauma manifestation. He will likely attack the core emotional weaknesses of each PC, kind of like the Dream Warriors. The campaign stakes will be global, expanding beyond Hawkins. Full party integration. All main PCs converge. 11, Mike, Max, Lucas, Dustin, Will, Nancy, Joyce, Hopper, or his return. Each PC's personal trauma is fully explored, resolved through individual dungeon-like quests, then merged into the final battle. Max versus trauma, 11 versus Vecna. Lucas and Max partnership is tested. Will being able to come out. Joyce as a cleric mother archetype. Hopper's grief is resolved. Dustin dealing with the loss of Eddie. Jonathan. It'll all be resolved in season 5. For following thematic like sacrifices and who doesn't make it in the show, there's as a dungeon master pattern, heroic deaths, permanent consequences like Bob. And when we thought Hopper didn't make it, like a sacrifice, he sacrificed himself so the mission could continue. And for 11, likely deaths are minor party members or NPC allies who elevate stakes, trauma resolution, survival, not necessarily literal, but all alive, emotional closure, trauma, healing. PCs face monsters, trauma, and failed adults. Theme: the found family survives, but the world has been forever changed. So in D&D's, leveling up, PCs overcoming trauma and becoming fully realized heroes. Gates, portals, and the upside down equal final multi-level dungeons to conquer. Allies equals NPCs or secondary PCs. Nancy, Steve, Erica provide tactical and emotional support. Stephen King's influence. Tone: it's bittersweet, it's emotionally heavy ending. Horror and trauma are resolved, but consequences linger, like in It or The Stand. The small town charm of Hawkins is juxtaposed with larger, unresolved truths of evil beyond the town. Likely ending of Stranger Things 5 is like victory, but not without cost. Party cohesion is emotional and not just physical. Trauma arcs are fully addressed. Max, 11, Hopper, Lucas, and Joyce all find personal resolution. I don't know about Will and Mike. There's that whole Bylar thing. We will see. So the Duffers as dungeon masters may leave one lingering portal or upside down threat, keeping the D&D world alive for thematic resonance. Classic King ending. Horror and darkness are not erased. The players have survived, but it's bitter sweet, right? So yeah, we understand that at the end of Stranger Things 5, it's going to leave room for a spinoff, right? That the Duffer Brothers have already talked about that. They also said that Mike, the actor, he figured out Finn Wolfhard. Yeah, he figured out what it's going to be. So I look forward to seeing the spinoff. So season 5 under the Duffer Brothers as dungeon masters and inspired by Stephen King will likely be a high stakes, emotionally intense final campaign. Each character will confront their personal trauma, mini bosses. The party will unite for a climatic final dungeon, and the ending will blend heroic victory with bittersweet loss, leaving a lingering threat and emotional resonance. A perfect fusion of D&D mechanics, 80s nostalgia, and Stephen King style horror. Season 5 is shaping up to be one of the most best cinematic endings to a TV show in the modern day history. I can't wait for Wednesday, bro. I'm really excited. Now I'm going to go over the D&D archetypes for each character, the party, the player character. So 11 is the sorcerer, the chosen hero. So for all my D&D players, I don't know, but this is what I've looked into, and this is what she would most likely be, her archetype. Raw power, emotional magic, trauma-based abilities, very like D&D. The mysterious girl with powers trope from many campaigns. Her arc equals learning to control her power and understand her identity, bringing her the true meaning of her relationship with Brenner, the disappearance of Will Byers, and how that played into her D&D campaign, her XP leveling up. So that's the archetype for 11, the sorcerer chosen hero. Now, for Joyce Byers, she is the cleric, wisdom keeper, the heart of the party, intuition, insight, emotional leadership, protective magic, metaphorical through love, always sees the truth others miss. In D&D, the cleric often solves the mystery when others fail. Will Byers is the oracle, seer, the one connected to the supernatural realm, receives visions, has sense for evil, the one who's been touched by magic and darkness, important for prophecy arcs like season 4, foreshadowing season 5. Everything starts and ends with Will Byers. Mike Wheeler, the paladin, idealistic leader, emotionally driven, loyalty-based, has a moral code. But paladins in D&D often fail early because they are young and naive. Mike's arc equals learning, real leadership. Dustin is the wizard, intelligence character, knows the lore, solves puzzles, deciphers creatures. In D&D, wizards often progress the plot. Lucas is the ranger scout, balanced character, real-world survival instincts, the practical one. Rangers often protect the party from danger. Hopper, the fighter, guardian, physical tank of the party, but with a deep, broken bond backstory. His daughter passed away. His arc equals redemption and healing. Classic gruff warrior with a heart of gold. Steve Harrington, the redemption monk rogue, starts selfish, finds discipline, becomes a protector of the younger players. In D&D terms, true neutral, chaotic good. Yeah, so for all the D&D lovers, you can tap into this and you could probably see the correlation very easily, better than I can, but this is what I found. So, why women are core characters, strong core characters. Women are the anchors of the campaign. Joyce, Eleven, and Max embody intuition, emotional intelligence, moral clarity, survival strength. In D&D, these characters are the ones who detect danger, keep the party together, sense magical patterns, heal or protect. The party emotionally survives because of the women, while the men must transform or fail. This is very intentional by the Duffer Brothers. You could see, a lot of the male characters have a lot of flaws. They're not really good people somewhat, but the women are very strong and capable. With the exception coming in season 2 when they introduce Bob Newby. He's the lawful good NPC, the sacrificial hero. Bob is a perfect example of a D&D lawful good party ally. Pure motives, kindness, emotional intelligence, offers wise advice, supports Joyce without ego, helps the party with real risk to himself. In D&D campaigns, the lawful good NPC often teaches a moral lesson, inspires the party, dies sacrificially, opens the next arc emotionally. Bob's death transforms Hopper, deepens Joyce, forces the party to grow. Man, long live Bob. Now we got to talk about Jim Hopper, his alignment in his D&D morality system. Hopper's D&D morality across the series. Season 1, he was a chaotic neutral. He's drinks, he's depressed, he's violent tendencies, disorganized, acts off emotion. In season 2, he was a chaotic good, cares for 11, trying to be a real father, still angry but with purpose. Season 3, neutral good, sacrificial hero. Letter to 11 shows emotional growth, sacrifices himself for Joyce and the kids, achieves redemption. So you can see Hopper's, D&D character throughout season 1 through 3, basically. Stay with me now. Each season as a D&D module, right? So season 1 is the first campaign. Find Will is a classic D&D quest. The party is formed. Hopper becomes the adult protector. 11 is the magical newcomer. Season 2, the Shadow Monster arc, deeper lore. Characters split into side quests. Bob is the red shirt heroic NPC. Hopper adopts 11, right? And this is shown classically through the Duffer Brothers' magic in their writing, in the campaign monsters, everything. They put it together very well. Season 2, Will becomes the vessel, the classic trope. Season 3, the corruption arc, Mind Flayer controlling host. Billy, D&D corruption. Hopper and Joyce, emotional leadership. Billy's trauma is explored. The gate closes equals a major campaign milestone. While in season 4, the villain is revealed. Vecna equals the dark wizard sorcerer. So if you're staying with me here and, you play the D&D game, the campaign, you can kind of see how each season as a D&D module, basically. Stay with me here. Stay with me. So yeah, Vecna, the Dark Wizard, Sorcerer, 11's origin, the magic backstory quest. The party gains new class abilities. Will becomes the Oracle. Season 5 will literally finalize the campaign if we're looking at this through the lens as the Duffer Brothers are the dungeon masters and the teen party, the kids party, the adult party, as the NPCs and their archetypes and their characters while using the 80s movies for reference. So it's just like a cinematic genius, literally. Now we got to talk about Nancy Wheeler and her class archetype in D&D. Nancy is a ranger, investigator, rogue hybrid. Nancy is excellent at investigation, reconnaissance, and uncovering hidden truth. She is strategic and clever. She often sees the monsters beneath the surface before anyone else does. She's skilled in tracking the plot threads, literally uncovering conspiracies, locating Will, exposing experiments. Her role in the party is a scout, secondary party leader. In a D&D party, you often have one or two characters who are the ones who investigate while others fight. Nancy takes the role seriously, often pairing with Jonathan, her partner, to hunt monsters. Her investigative skills make her the party's eye and brain, able to navigate the D&D campaign, the maps. Nancy is very important to the party. Alignment is lawful good, neutral good. Strong moral compass, willing to risk herself for justice. often clashes with authority figures who are corrupt or negligent. Hawkins police, school officials, her own father at times, the people at the newspaper. She's a heroic NPC type. If she were a real D&D game, she could either be a player character or a recurring ally NPC guiding the younger party members. So shout out to Nancy, who actually got the vision from Vecna. So she already sees the plan going into season 5, or she was given the vision specifically by Vecna. This will be very important for season 5. So Nancy has a focal point. While the kids in 11 drive the main supernatural arcs, Nancy bridges the teen world and the adult world. She's a moral compass and party coordinator, often connecting characters across teams, helps Jonathan navigate adult responsibilities, partners with Mike 11 party when necessary, investigates corporate secret government elements. So Nancy and the Dungeons and Dragons, the D&D metaphor in Stranger Things is about quests, party formation, and dealing with monsters. Nancy represents the experienced adventurer who knows the rules of the world. So she is the monster hunter. She can face both humans, Hawkins lab, abusive figures, and upside down creatures. She's the party advisor, strategist, often directs younger PCs in what to do, bridge between campaign arcs. She's present across all of the storylines, season 1 through 4, giving continuality to the campaign. She's been around from season 1 through season 5. I would hate to see Nancy go, but she is on my list, especially for season 5. I don't know if Nancy survives, man. So how Nancy's presence enhances the party. Without Nancy, the party lacks human intelligence gathering. She uncovers hidden plots, such like a D&D scout-focused character uncovering traps and hidden quests. Her investigative drive pushes the plot forward, keeping the campaign dynamic. They also introduced Robin in season 3, who has similarities to Nancy too. Just shows they team up as like a super investigative intelligence gathering campaign duo, which I think will come full circle in season 5 as well. So some examples of Nancy across the season. Season 1, she teams with Jonathan to expose Hawkins' lab, functions like a rogue scout, finds evidence others miss. Season 2, investigates Barb's death, tracks the mind flayer influence, parallels the party's supernatural quest. Season 3, helps uncover Russian secret base under Starcourt. Strategic mind and courage make her the adult adjacent player character in a high stakes arc. Season 4 continues to investigate the role of Jonathan. Her arc is critical for locating threats and coordinating attacks. She's effectively the campaign logistics and field scout. Nancy in a D&D campaign, right? Her class is the Rogue Ranger hybrid. Her alignment is a lawful good, neutral good. Her role is a monster hunter, party liaison. Her impact, she keeps the story moving, connects teen and adult world. Nancy is more than a side character. She is a focal point of the campaign, acting as a strategist, scout, and moral guide. In D&D terms, she's a multi-seasonal, reoccurring hero NPC essential to the party's survival, investigation, and quest success. We already see Nancy's going to be on demon time in season 5. Let's get it. So now we got to tap into Mad Max in her Dungeons and Dragons D&D types. Her class archetype is the rogue fighter. Rogue fighter hybrid with sorcerer tendencies. Rogue, agile, independent, often acting alone initially. A fighter, physically capable, can confront threats head on. Fighter, physically capable, already said that. Sorcerer, has psychic edge, has emotional, magical insight. Her connection to Billy in the Mind Flayer's psychic attacks. Max abilities are more metaphorical than supernatural. Her power is resilience, courage, and emotional fortitude. Max's role in the party is the emotional survivor, the trauma processing hero. Max brings a personal story arc that intersects with the larger party quest. Her journey is about learning to confront trauma directly, which parallels many D&D campaigns where PCs faces a personal dilemma. So yeah, we know her state heading into season 5. She's in a coma. She's trapped in Vecna's mind. What's going to happen to Max, man? She has a personal mini boss story tied to her backstory. She is not the frontline leader, but a critical part of the party's emotional arc. Her alignment, neutral good, chaotic good. Max starts withdrawn and reactive neutral. She learns to take action, confront personal demons, and help the party, chaotic good. Her quest, season 3, in D&D terms, the mini boss, Billy, the mind flayer possession, equals trauma, her inner demons. The mentor, Nancy, Hopper, and other PCs support her. You know, Lucas, Dustin, Mike, you know what I mean? So her quest, basically the objective, overcome trauma, reconnect emotionally, regain agency. Reward milestone. Max confronts her fears, accepts that Billy's influence is gone, and asserts her identity. Foreshadowing prepares her for season 4, where she plays a more central role in the upside down battles and Vecna targeting her because of her grief and loss of Billy. So symbolic role in the campaign. Max is like a side quest PC with personal dungeon. Her dungeon equals her trauma. The party cannot advance without supporting her arc emotionally and literally when the mind flayer threatens the group. She represents healing magic in the narrative. She shows how to process grief, trauma, and anger essentially for the party's survival. Essential for the party's survival. At the end of season 3, we seen that 11 had that vision of Billy with the mom on the beach, and that was foreshadowing for Billy, but you can also use that as like Max, as the future mom. Like in D&D terms, NPCs often have visions of their personal future as part of character growth because they showed Max's face while showing 11's vision. So Max facing the Billy trauma equals the boss fight where the monster is internalized trauma rather than a literal monster. The imagery of hers as a mom or maybe her own mother in the vision, the emotional stakes and parental archetype. So campaign metaphor is maintained. The D&D monster is the trauma in your backstory, which Max must overcome to become a fully capable PC in the party. Max's full D&D character archetype. Her class is a rogue fighter hybrid, trauma-driven sorcerer's edge. Alignment, neutral good, chaotic good. Her role, emotional survivor, trauma-facing mini-boss PC. Her quest, confront Billy mind flayer possession, integrate trauma, assert identity. Party impact. Her personal victory strengthens party morale, prepares group for larger upside down threats. Symbolism. Trauma embodied as a monster. Emotional stakes. Victory is the character leveling up. Heading into season 5, Max is going to be crucial for the party. It's evident. Specifically in season 3, Max is the trauma boss fight PC for Stranger Things. Billy and the mother imagery represent her personal dungeon, and overcoming this personal quest strengthens both her and the party, exactly how D&D campaigns integrate personal character arcs into the main quest. But with her leaving her with such grief and misguidedness now that Billy's no longer there, it's like, how do you deal with leaving your trauma behind and your abuser heading into season 4? Vecna sees this as a weakness and targets Max, and she equals being the 4th one to open the bridge for Vecna. Okay, we got Lucas Sinclair. All right, his class archetype. Ranger, Scout, Fighter, Hybrid. Lucas is skilled, practical, and action-oriented. He's often the party's frontline defender, but also Scout, strategist, noticing dangers before others. His skepticism and critical thinking give him survival skills, similar to a D&D Ranger who both fights and navigates terrain. Secondary archetype, social negotiator, tactician. Lucas often mediates conflicts between Mike and 11, Mike and Dustin. This makes him a party tactician, keeping moral and strategy aligned. His alignment, neutral good, chaotic good. Acts morally, but is pragmatic and often questions authority. Lucas always questions things. Doesn't blindly follow rules. He evaluates risks and thinks independently. Over time, his choices become more heroically selfless, risking himself to save friends. In season 3, we seen what he's doing for Max, fighting for Max in season 4, and we already know in season 5, Lucas is going to go all out. He hasn't left Max's side in season 5. He's going to be there to protect her through the end. Max is his focal point, and he's showing her emotional stability as well. So shout out to Lucas, bro. So Lucas is grounded, practical voice of the party, while others, 11, Mike, Hopper, sometimes act emotionally. Lucas provides strategic and real-world insight, a classic D&D Ranger role. His relationship with Max. Max's introduction to season 2 adds new party dynamics. Lucas initially distrusts Max, classic D&D, new PC joins mid-campaign arc. Their dynamic evolves. Lucas grows emotional maturity and teamwork, teaching patience, empathy, and leadership. Their eventual romantic platonic partnership mirrors party synergy mechanics. The Ranger and Rogue-like member cooperating for maximum party effectiveness. Max, as a trauma-facing PC, benefits from Lucas's protection and support. In D&D terms, he is her guardian companion, helping her survive external threats while she faces her internal ones. He helps balance the party emotionally, stabilizing Max, while also complementing her at the same time. Also complements 11's powers. You can also see Lucas's arc in season 4, just dealing with his identity, tired of being what they would consider a nerd, wanting to be popular, leaving him to kind of leave the party and join another party, which was like the popular jock crew. But he ultimately realized how important he was, and it shows him being a true fan and choosing his party in Dustin and understanding how much of trouble they're in when, the Eddie Munson situation happened. So shout out to Lucas, bro. Can't wait for season 5. Yeah, Lucas's personal arc, is he's skeptical, cautious. He relies on pragmatism. He's conflicted over Max joining the party, protective of 11, faces major battles. The Mind Flayer, Star Kerbal, demonstrates heroism with his slingshot. And by season 4, he's fully integrated part of the core adventuring party. So the key moment, Lucas stands up to the adults like Ted Wheeler, or when dealing with the Mind Flayer minions, shows moral courage. Impact on the party, provides consistent practical thinking, risk evaluation, and moral compass for Max and the younger PCs. So Lucas as a party mechanic, right? He's an emotional balance. He calms panic, mediates arguments, tactical insight, spots traps, danger, enemy weaknesses. Protective role, shields Max, supports 11, rescues kids in combat situations. His growth from skeptical teen to reliable party member. His D&D character leveling through experience. In campaign terms, Lucas is a mid-level ranger who keeps the party alive and prepared. He is not the flashy sorcerer 11 or the cleric Joyce, but without him, the party risks strategic failures or uncoordinated attacks, right? So Lucas is important. So Lucas' relationship to the larger D&D narrative, right? Lucas anchors the emotional and tactical integrity of the party, ensures new PCs like Max are integrated smoothly, provides realistic action planning and moral guidance, bridges gaps between impulsive players Mike, 11, and emotionally charged characters Max, Hopper. In D&D terms, he's like the party's glue, keeps the adventuring team functional, mitigates chaos, and balances risk-reward decision. So, yeah, Lucas in season 5, we see him trapped with the Demigorgons. What's going to happen to Lucas, bruh? Lucas got Demigorgons everywhere. So, Lucas's core trauma, right, is his parental neglect pressure. Lucas' parents are present but not emotionally expressive in the show. He experiences a kind of emotional neglect where he has to be pragmatic, self-reliant, and protective of his siblings and friends. Erica. D&D parallel, a character growing up without a mentor or safe NPC forced to learn survival skills early. He has a lack of trust. He feels undervalued. Season 1 shows Lucas skeptical of Mike, 11, and Dustin, especially when the group is rushing into dangerous situations. He often feels unheard and underestimated, particularly in group situations. The D&D parallel is a player character uncertain about joining a party or distrustful of more magical or powerful PCs. His growth arc involves learning to trust others while maintaining his own judgment. Family expectations and peer pressure. Lucas is athletic and competitive, yet his struggles to balance personal ethics versus peer acceptance. Season 2 through 3 shows him grappling with loyalty to friends versus temptation to act impulsively, protecting Max, fighting bullies, facing supernatural threats. D&D parallel, ranger, fighter who must balance risks taking with party safety, classic test of character growth. Trauma via Max, emotional vulnerability. When Max joins the party in season 2, Lucas confronts new emotional stakes. He must navigate jealousy, attraction, and the vulnerability that comes with caring for someone who has trauma. Max's past with Billy. We've seen how he's targeted by Billy, so he's dealing with his own. You can almost put a little bit of alleged racism in there too, the way Billy targets Lucas, so he's dealing with his own real-life trauma. D&D parallel, a party member gaining a new PC who brings her own mini-boss trauma quest, forcing Lucas to mature emotionally while protecting the group. Was it like for a young Lucas, dating Max, who's a white girl, and her older brother who's white, and dad, all that is moving into the character and the writing. I love the Duffer Brothers, bro. It really showed, especially the way Billy was not going for it. So exposure to supernatural threats across the Upside Down arcs, Demogorgon, Mind Flayer, Lucas sees death, loss, and existential danger. Unlike 11, he doesn't have power to defend himself. He has a wrist rocket. So he experiences powerlessness, a trauma rooted in survival instinct and mortality. The D&D parallel, a low magic party member forced to confront high-level threats, learning to cope with fear and risk. So, Lucas trauma plays out across the season. Season 1, skepticism, distrust, fear of not being heard. Season 2, loyalty, conflicts, Max joining, emotional vulnerability. Season 3, survival under the Mind Flayer siege, protection. Season 4, joining the jocks, ditching his D&D campaign, just a real... who is he in real life? Who does he want to be? He's tired of being a nerd. Should he be a jock? All real life trauma written beautifully by the Duffer Brothers, which I think was beautifully put in season 4. He continues as the emotional anchor and strategic voice while dealing with an identity crisis, growing up as a young African-American teen in the 80s where all the popular kids are jocks and plays basketball, but his original crew is, considered nerds in high school, but they're living true to that. Like Mike and Dustin are staying true to their D&D party. Max is completely checked out, so he's dealing with the loss of his girlfriend because he was dumped. So season 4, Lucas is dealing with a lot of trauma. Season 5, he will have his redemption. On a D&D campaign interpretation, Lucas trauma equals emotional and strategic vulnerability. His growth equals leveling up in emotional intelligence, tactical skill, and moral courage. His challenge, balancing pragmatism, trust, and protective instincts, often while facing threats beyond his power. Literal monsters or social pressure, as we see in season 4. He's drinking, he's out partying with the other teens. Stuff that's not true to his character, so he's dealing with an identity crisis, His role in the party, the stabilizing ranger fighter who keeps the party grounded while bridging relationships between PCs, Max, 11, and Mike. Lucas's trauma is not about monsters or magic. It's about trust, responsibility, and emotional courage, and overcoming it is his personal dungeon quest in the Stranger Things D&D campaign. Realizing he is a part of the party, he doesn't have to go fit in with other people. And Mike, Dustin, Lucas, 11, Max, they're all his heart. Those are his true friends, his true campaign. All right, I hope I haven't lost you guys. Again, we're talking about this from a D&D campaign, and the Duffer Brothers are the dungeon masters. So this is, again, for all of my D&D fans who enjoy the logic and can see the way the Duffer Brothers have written this into the scripts and how season 1 through 5 of Stranger Things has played out as can be looked at as one big D&D campaign. This is me tapping into the lore and the magic behind that. Just for some of the people like myself who wasn't familiar with Dungeons and Dragons at all. I heard about it, but just to relate to the show, I was never introduced to it or anything. So seeing it for the first time is just gives me another lens to look at the show through. So this is just me breaking that down because I do understand how important D&D is to the whole show and the fans across America and the world who love the show and are looking at it through that lens. So it just opened up my eyes to a new lens to view the show through as well. And it makes me go back and watch the season totally different now when you look at it through this lens, because it's like, wow, you could see it playing out literally each season as a campaign, even with all the monsters and the lore. It's crazy. Okay, so Hawkins, Indiana is a campaign setting. Hawkins is the sandbox or campaign map in D&D terms. Small town, controlled environment for adventures, hidden magical supernatural elements, secret dungeons, traps, and quests, normal NPCs, townsfolk, neutral characters. Abusive or negligent adults equals flawed NPCs, mini bosses, or obstacles. In D&D terms, Hawkins functions like a starting town in a campaign. The party starts small, grows, explores hidden dangers, and uncovers the first big monster, the Demogorgon. Later seasons expands the map, Starcourt Mall, Russia, Upside Down tunnels, like moving to new campaign areas or modules, which is brilliant what the Duffer Brothers have done. Allegedly, let me put this is just my theory, but it really plays out that way when you go back and watch each season and you look at it through the D&D lens. It's actually pretty dope if you ask me. I enjoy it. So Hawkins Lab is like the dungeon monster factory. Hawkins National Laboratory is the literal dungeon arcane facility. Experiments equal magical experience, forbidden arcana in D&D module. Children equal PCs or apprentices with latent magical power. 11, Callie, Victor Krill, or one, whoever his name is, Vecna. Dr. Brenner is the evil wizard, manipulative DM or NPC. The Mind Flayer, Demogorgon monsters summoned or unleashed by experiments. In D&D metaphor, Hawkins Lab equals evil wizard's tower where PCs are experiment on or to create or control magical abilities. Functionally, raises stakes for the party, creates personal trauma arcs for characters 11, Will, Callie, Vecna, 11, Brenner. Introduces major adversaries, Demogorgon, Mind Flare, you know. You get Starcourt Mall, the Russians equals a new campaign expansion. In Season 3, the Russians equals a new faction, enemy NPCs, build their own dungeon under Starcourt Mall. Their tech, alternative magic system, expand the world. Party must navigate politics, spies, and traps. D&D parallel, adding a second villainous wizard rival DM. Introduces new side quests, rescue missions, sabotage, intelligence gathering, forces party to adapt to multiple factions, conflicting objectives. This is a classic D&D, expanding the module with new antagonists and new dungeons, keeps the party engaged, adds complexity and tests character growth. Season 3 was one of my favorites. You could just see the multi-level campaign between Hawkins, Starcourt, and Russian Lab, however you want to put it. So the children as magical PCs, 11, Callie, in some metaphoric sense, latent magical PCs being trained. We later learn Vecna. Hawkins Lab experiments equals force, leveling up or unlocking abilities. Trauma equals XP gained, classic D&D mural, overcoming challenge, character growth. Key point, the Duffers show the powers comes with cost. Trauma is literally the XP system of the campaign. 11's abilities, player character skills, but her trauma, psychic strain, balancing mechanics. She can't overuse powers without consequences. Often see when she uses her powers, her nose bleeds, she ends up fainting. She comes out in horrible sweats and she has trauma. Her powers, with every time she uses her power, sometimes even going to the upside down or going to that place where she can see into people's mind, she comes out with trauma, crying. It's horrible, right? It's not cool. So when we're seeing the Duffer Brothers as dungeon masters, right? They controlled world mechanics, what monsters exist, how portals, gates function, rules of power, psychic abilities, mind flayer control, NPC, morality and consequences, including Hawkins Lab plus the Russian subplot is a classic DM behavior. Introduces hidden dungeons, lab experiments, introducing rival factions, the Russians, add high-level stakes bosses, fights Demogorgon, Mind Flayer, Vecna. They force the PCs to make moral, strategic, and emotional choices, right? So the Duffer Brothers, right, intentionally mix trauma, morality, and survival mechanics to make the story feel like a living campaign rather than a simple linear plot, which we know in Season 5 they will introduce more new adversaries. Okay, so why this fits into D&D metaphor. Hawkins equals the campaign hub town. Hawkins Lab equals the dungeon, the evil wizard's tower. Russians equal rival dungeon expansion module. Children equal PCs gaining powers through trauma XP. Adults equal flawed NPCs or quest givers. The Mind Flayer, Demogorgon, Vecna equal major bosses. The Duffers are dungeon masters controlling monsters, narrative, and world rules. The show externalizes D&D mechanics in narrative form. Gate equals portal to next dungeon. Trauma, XP. Moral choices equal alignment test. Party dynamics is team building mechanics, right? Lab and the Russian connection to D&D. Hawkins Town, small controlled town. Hawkins Lab, secret experiments on kids, children, 11, etc. PCs with latent powers. Russians, new faction threat. Monster, Demogorgon, Mind Flayer, literal monsters. Duffers are the show creators. Trauma is the psychic emotional cost. Gates and portals, upside down entrances. Man, allegedly, this is just my theory. The Duffers do a great job, integrating D&D throughout the whole show's mechanics from everything. So yeah, just a different lens to look. So with that being said, Hawkins Lab and the Russian subplot are the D&D dungeons, expansions, and boss areas designed by the Duffers as dungeon masters. They create challenges, power progression, moral dilemmas, and party dynamics, all exactly like a tabletop campaign. The children's powers and trauma are the XP system, and the party must navigate flawed NPCs, monsters, and rival factions to survive and grow. You pair that with the 80s nostalgia, the Stephen King influence, the Wes Craven, Steven Spielberg, and Season 5 is going to be literally insane. I cannot wait. So if you're like me, right, I took film as art and communication in college, so I couldn't help but notice how all the male characters in, Stranger Things are flawed, bro. Like, so check this out. So in D&D campaigns created by a dungeon master like the Duffers, flawed male NPCs serve specific narrative purposes. This is just a theory of mine, right? It's not facts, but hear me out. They represent broken authority. NPC fathers, stepfathers, and boyfriends show neglect, emotional weakness, abusive masculinity, failure to protect. This forces the player characters to become braver, stronger, more emotionally connected. In campaign design, broken authority figures push the party to take action because the adults won't. And all through Stranger Things, man, except for probably Bob, the male figures are horrible, bro. Like, you can just look through each season. Even some male figures not even being present, but you got Lonnie, Hopper, Billy, Steve in the beginning. Mike's dad is not even present as a father. He's just absent-minded. He's literally not there. Vecna, Dr. Brenner, Dr. Owens, Steve's friend, just horrible dudes, bro, throughout the show. So this is a deep thematic question, and the Stranger Things consistently shows flawed, unreliable, or harmful men, while also showing powerful, resourceful, moral women in many single mother households carrying the emotional weight of the story. This is not an accident, and yes, this does connect very strongly to Dungeons & Dragons structure, campaign metaphor, and why characters like Bob Newby actually matter. So, Stranger Things men are flawed on purpose, right? So, Hopper, drinks, depressed, trauma, one-night stands, controlling behavior. Steve, early on, like season 1 Steve, selfish, insecure, horrible boyfriend. Ted Wheeler, useless, disengaged, patriarchal. Billy's father, abusive, which led to Billy being abusive towards Max. Lonnie only came around to collect the reward, wasn't even around, really caused Joyce a lot of trauma. You don't even see Dustin's father. You barely see Lucas's dad, but he isn't heavily involved. He's just kind of clueless. Dr. Brenner, Dr. Owens. Man, shall I continue? So Billy, he's damaged, violent, toxic masculinity from his upbringing. Lonnie Byers is literally a deadbeat. Troy and the high school boys are bullies. Jonathan Early, socially awkward, boundary issues. Even Mike in season 3, lying, controlling, emotional immaturity. The only pure good man is exactly who he said. Bob Newby, kind, supportive, safe, emotional, available, and he dies a heroic death. So the Duffer Brothers were definitely trying to put something in here. You just got to pay attention. Very important. This pattern is intentional because of Duffer Brothers' core theme. The real monsters aren't just the demigorgons. It's broken masculinity, absent fathers, and generational trauma, bro. The Duffer Brothers, I don't know if they're pulling from their own personal trauma in their lives and how they wrote this into the story, but this is how it connects to D&D from my perspective. In D&D campaigns, players often confront corrupted kings, abusive father figures, flawed male authority, tyrants and bullies, male NPCs who fail to protect the village. The Duffers mirror this archetype. I don't know if they're pulling from personal trauma in stories. I think in the epilogue, we'll get the true meaning of why they made the males the way they were throughout Stranger Things and the women they were throughout Stranger Things. I really do. So in many classic D&D stories, the women are the ones who hold the emotional intelligence and intuition. Men in power, kings, guards, fathers, often fail, and the party must rise above them. The party becomes the found family. So what Stranger Things does is build the party. 11, Joyce, Hopper, the kids, in reaction to failed male authority NPCs, exactly how many D&D campaigns are structured. This is alleged. This is not a spoiler, but I think in the final epilogue, the Duffers will pull this all together to show a more real world symbolism to like the monsters being the men in the story. So that's really why I feel why Bob Newby was introduced in season 2. It might be something from the Duffer Brothers' lives. Maybe they had a stepdad that was introduced into their life growing up. Maybe they had a father who was abusive or negligent or absent, and then they really learned to be themselves through somebody like Bob Newby, who they seen help their mom. You know, like people write real life, their life into stories all the time. So this could be in the epilogue or behind the Duffer Brothers' reason to introduce Bob Newby. So Bob is introduced for very important and narrative and symbolic reason. He is the one good man to show contrast. Bob represents kindness, patience, integrity, emotional safety, communication. Compared to every other man in the narrative, he stands out. His goodness highlights how rare good male behavior is in the Stranger Things world. Reason 2, he is a narrative teaching tool for the party. Bob brings optimism, problem solving, non-violence, and compassion for real, like a complete opposite of like a Steve and a Hopper and a Billy, who are just naturally aggressive. Bob is like the total opposite. So I think they were showing a complete contrast in male figures in real world and in the Stranger Things world. So just go back and look at season 2. So Bob was actually good for Joyce, and he shows the kids what healthy adulthood looks like. In D&D terms, a lawful good archetype, right? That's who Bob was. And I think they brought him in, maybe for Hopper to learn his next XP on how to, become his archetype. For Joyce to have somebody like Lonnie, who's a deadbeat, who completely isn't there, to then have Bob, and then she dates Hopper. Like, Joyce has her own story too. She's dealing with so many different type of men, from Lonnie to Bob to now Hopper. That's all a part of the story by the Duffers. In a D&D trope, Bob is a sacrificial hero. The pure character often dies in mid-campaign to expand the darkness, escalate the stakes, emotionally test the party, force others to grow. Bob's death specifically changes Joyce, Hopper, and the kids. It kicks the campaign into deeper emotional terrain. His death clears space for Hopper and Joyce, right? Bob had to die for the classic story arc. A flawed man Hopper must rise and become the good partner after witnessing what a real man Bob looks like. This is a common D&D campaign emotional arc, and you can see how the Duffer Brothers have used this throughout season 1 through 5. Which brings you to the question, why are there so many single mothers? In Stranger Things, single mothers are major pillars. Joyce Byers, the warrior, the seeker, the protector. Lonnie, complete douchebag, deadbeat father. Karen Wheeler, emotionally single, raises kids alone while Ted is checked out. You always see how Ted is just useless. Even the kids call him useless. He's there, but for Karen, she's a single mother. Nobody's there for her emotionally. Hopper's wife is gone. Hopper is emotionally a single parent. Dustin's mom, we never even see Dustin's dad. And for Lucas, his parents are there. They don't show him too much, but he doesn't seem too much involved in Lucas's life. Eleven's mother, Terry Ives, another single mother ruined by a male-dominated government. In a D&D campaign structure, the single mother archetypes often reflect wisdom, intuition, emotional magic, guardianship, the heart of the hero party. We never meet Robin's mom or dad. We never meet Steve's mom or dad. Bob's mom and dad were completely clueless. I think, though, this will all tie into what the Duffer Brothers were trying to talk about throughout the entire series of this, like, absent parents, period. So Joyce is the cleric, 11 is the sorcerer, Mike and Will are the fighter mages, Hopper equals the flawed ranger warrior trying to redeem himself. Women in Stranger Things hold the emotional world together, while men often break it. And I think what the Duffer Brothers are trying to convey in the real world is toxic masculinity as a monster. So stay with me now. Inside the narrative, Vecna equals trauma. Mind Flayer equals the hive mind. Control, meaning like the government, male figures in society just controlling everything, right? So I think the Duffer Brothers are trying to really talk about in their shows. The Demigorgon equals fear. The Upside Down equals suppressed pain, but the earliest monsters in the story are absent fathers, abusive stepfathers, toxic boyfriends, emotionally unavailable men, predatory male authority like Dr. Brenner. This mirrors D&D, where the internal monsters, fear, grief, shame, mirror the external monsters. So Hopper losing Sarah, Billy being abused by his father, the boys lacking good male role models. These are the part of the emotional campaign map. And you can see that from season 1 beyond, right? So how does all this relate to the D&D campaign for the Duffers? So the Duffers act as dungeon masters. They populate the world with flawed male NPCs, emotionally strong female PCs, trauma-based character arcs, battles that reflect emotional wounds. The quest of Stranger Things is healing, right? The monsters are metaphors for grief, loss, neglect, childhood trauma, and failed fatherhood. That's just something that I could see throughout the show, rewatching it several times. You got to go back and watch it, 5 or 6 times to really see and convey that. The party, the kids, 11 plus Joyce plus Hopper, they form a found family in D&D terms, right? Replacing the biological family. So this is exactly how a D&D campaign shifts from broken NPC homes to party-generated family unit, right? So I think in the epilogue, the Duffer Brothers at the end of season 5, like that last 30 or 40 minutes is going to have people in tears and crying because they're going to tie it all together. How they showed through a D&D campaign, through their 80s movie nostalgia, this is all about healing, right? So Stranger Things builds a world where flawed, harmful, or absent men have created trauma, and the campaign of the story is the journey of brave women, children, and a few redeemed men, Hopper, Steve, to heal those wounds and to defeat the emotional monsters, all within a Dungeons and Dragons campaign structure. This completely is my theory. It's one of the many theories out there. I'm not saying it's true, but I do look forward to that final epilogue to see if they tie it all back in, especially with Will being able to come out comfortably, right? Will being able to express his love for Mike, which we can clearly see it's headed towards. Even Mike being able to realize he might have been confused and like Will. You never know. That's clearly what the show is heading towards. The television maybe being movies might being a way as like escapism for parents to actually parent their kids. So maybe the rise of TV shows and movies in the 80s stopped having parents be parents and the kids started getting raised by the TV and movies. I think that's something the Duffer Brothers can be talking about. Trauma that happens that goes unnoticed, like physical abuse, other abuse that's more serious within families, households, you know what I mean? I think Stranger Things is way deeper than just a sci-fi / horror thriller of kids facing monsters in their hometown. I think it's about real life trauma being faced and them using like a D&D style campaign and 80s nostalgic movies to convey that. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe. Had to come out of my shell for this one, but I really enjoy Stranger Things. I enjoy what the Duffer Brothers are doing. If you like Stranger Things too, drop a like, drop a comment. I'm going to get back to my regular scheduled content, but anytime I see something that I enjoy, which is Stranger Things, and me taking film as art as a communication in college, it's hard to ignore the symbolism and what I see as movie tropes inside of movies. So yeah, I appreciate all the love and support. As always, say no more.